To begin the ignition switch process, a pinout diagram is displayed to help ensure proper installation. This process includes the connection of 4 pre-terminated wires. Install the switch into the dashboard. Once the switch is inside the dashboard, insert the trim bezel. And last but not least, insert the key tumbler. Then begin on the radio connections. Begin the radio connections by locating the red radio wire from the fuse block. Typically 2 wires will need to be cut to length. However, since this is the original radio for the 1965 Mustang, only 1 wire is necessary. This wire requires a switched power source. Cut the red wire to length and install a bullet terminal from the parts kit. Connect the wire to the single bullet connector from the radio. The unused wire will need to be insulated and then rolled back into the harness. This wire currently changed from gray to yellow. After the wire is put away, move forward to connect the cigarette lighter. Locate the yellow cigarette wire and cut to length. Since this is not a factory product, we are going to install a push-on terminal from the parts kit. Then connect it to the lighter. Once the wire is connected, install the lighter inside the dashboard. Then insert the lighter knob. Once the lighter knob is properly in place, proceed to install the passenger side door switch. Passenger side door switch consists of 2 pre-terminated wires. Route these wires into the door jamb. Connect the 2 wires to the door switch. The wires can go in either side of the switch because the switch is non-polarity specific. After the switch has been inserted into the door jamb, locate the unused ammeter wires. Before moving on to the gauge cluster, be sure to insulate the unused ammeter wires. 2 ammeter wires are designed for the 1966 Mustang cluster. Since we are installing into the 1965 model, these 2 wires will need to be insulated. This step is very critical. The ammeter wires are direct battery power wires and could potentially be a hazard. Once both wires have been terminated, locate the gauge cluster pigtail as well as the gauge cluster. The gauge cluster consists of many connections from the gauge cluster pigtail. One of the noticeable differences between the 1965 Mustang and the 66 is the gauge cluster. The 65 model gauge cluster will require the use of the 65 harness pigtail, and the 66 gauge requires the 66 harness pigtail. The Painless kit entails the 65 cluster, in which we will proceed to install. We'll begin with the oil pressure and proceed to the panel lights, high beam indicator, and the fuel gauge. Next, we'll move to the gauge cluster voltage regulator, the other 2 panel lights, the turn indicator, the charge indicator, and last but not least, the temperature gauge. After all connections have been made, prepare to install the gauge cluster into the dashboard. Locate the gauge cluster pigtail connection as well as the main harness connection. Connect the gauge cluster pigtail to the harness. Then, insert the gauge cluster into the dashboard. Once the gauge cluster is in place, secure it with mounting screws. Locate the headlight section connectors. The headlight section will make your car come alive with headlight and horn installations. To start the headlight section, route the headlight section of the harness into the engine compartment. Starting with headlight section A, feed all the headlight wires and turn signal wires from the headlight switch out to the headlights and turn signals. Headlight section connectors can be connected in the engine compartment or the driver's side kick panel area. Route headlight section A through the driver's side firewall hole. Before inserting the grommet into the firewall hole, it needs to be sliced to allow an opening for the wires. Then insert the grommet into the engine section firewall hole. Once the grommet has been inserted, connect headlight section B to headlight section A. Headlight section B is a sub-harness included in your Painless kit. Locate headlight section B and connect the two connectors to headlight section A coming from the previously enlarged firewall hole. After the connections have been made, route the wires down the inner fender to the washer pump connection. The washer pump is located in the front of the engine compartment. This process consists of connecting one wire to the washer pump. Route and cut the wire down to the motor. Proceed to install a push-on terminal from the parts kit. Connect the wire to the pump. Once the wire is connected, begin to locate the headlight section wiring. Begin to separate the headlight wires for the driver's side headlight install. Route the driver's side turn signal light and driver's side headlight through the inner fender. Once the wiring is in the proper place for connection, install grommets into the hole from the parts kit. Pull the wiring through the headlight opening and locate the headlight. Connect the light to the pre-installed connector and then push the light back as far as it can go. Place the trim ring around the light for security. After the light is properly connected, proceed to locate the driver's side turn park light wiring. The driver's side turn park light consists of connecting 3 wires from the light to the harness. The wires come pre-installed with molded connectors. However, with this install, the factory connector from the turn signal lamp was previously removed. For the case of this install, the connectors will be cut from the Painless harness and spliced to the factory turn lamp wires. Connect the black wire to the ground wire. Then, connect the green-white wire to the turn signal wire. Last, connect the black-yellow wire to the park wire. Once all the wires have been connected, pull the wires and the light into the socket. After the light has been connected, locate the wiring for the horn. The horn connection requires the routing and connection of one pre-terminated wire. Route the wire through the small hole in the core support, and then connect to the tab on the back of the horn. Split the grommet on one side to fit around the wire before inserting into the hole. After the grommet is in place, locate the passenger side headlight wires.